Welcome everyone. This is unexpected. I didn't think I was going to have some news on Marathon so soon. Now this information is not any kind of confirmation from Bungie. This is from an outside source, so it is in no way reliable and should be taken with a grain of salt. But we have here on Twitter, 2 days ago on August 29th, a Twitter account going by Oops Leaks posted a thread on Twitter called the Marathon Expose, supposedly leaking a lot of details about the game. Now, since I'm basically just going to be reading this to you and giving my opinions on it, this is not going to be any kind of scripted video, so I'm just going to go through this Twitter thread and just give my opinions on it. So first, as this starts out, this is named the Marathon Expose. It's just the name they gave to the thread. So right here, they immediately say right off the bat, it is not a hero shooter and it's not getting canceled. Now, when it comes to the hero shooter claim, my last video talked about that a bit. I do think there's a possibility that it is a hero shooter, but I don't think it's exactly the way people think with something like Valorant or Apex Legends. Now, with it being canceled, I never thought it was going to be canceled. There's too much riding on Marathon for Bungie to just completely shelve the game. It would be, in my opinion, suicide for the studio. Now they say here Barrett was replaced by Ziegler more than a year ago. We know that from Ziegler tweeting. He had been working on the game. Now next they say Marathon's probably the best existed IP to get an extraction shooter angle. I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's the best, but because of the rich, deep lore, I think it's going to be really interesting to have a kind of evolving storyline with a PvP extraction shooter. So here they say it's one of the lore-richest sci-fi games, and this lore is treated with enormous love in the new game. I agree. The lore for Marathon is very extensive and rich. I think it's some of the best sci-fi lore, at least the most interesting to me. I agree, it's probably going to be treated with enormous love in the new game because we've seen how hard Bungie has worked on making the ARG so entertaining. It shows so much creativity that the studio has for this game, which is wonderful and gets me really excited to see the stories we're going to see. Next, they say there's runners, cybernetic bodies you control. We know this from the ARG, and we know from the Vidoc we will be playing as these cloned bodies or biomata. Now next they say the whole hero shooter freakiness is total nonsense. Again, I hope this is true. I want to have just customizable characters with classes, but it's just going to be a wait and see. Now they say next, there are content creators playtesting the game basically every month. I believe this. It makes sense they would want to get feedback. It would be dumb to not. Now it says they're mostly Escape from Tarkov and Hunt streamers. I believe this. I don't see why they would want to get people from Overwatch and Val to actually play the game because it's an extraction shooter. Even though I think they should kind of push Marathon to a wider audience and make it a bit more casual, you're still going to be catering to extraction shooter players. Now they say the closest thing that they've heard that could be tied to heroes is that there are 4 customizable runner presets. Not really even classes, but just presets. I don't know if this is going to be the way of just preset like ability loadouts or gear loadouts, because we don't exactly know how that stuff's going to work. So here they state there are 4 customizable runner presets that line up with different play styles like in the game The Finals. This is what I was talking about in my other video where I said that there's a possibility that they're split up into classes that fill very specific roles. However, the use of the word preset leans more into these just being default loadouts that you might start with. Now, I will real quickly go over with my predictions on if this is true, what exactly these 4 presets might mean. So I don't exactly have a prediction for what the actual acronyms might mean in this case, but I will give predictions on what they do. Now the first one, SIG, seems like it's going to be more of a scouting class because of the INT, which I'm assuming stands for intelligence. Same with the HUM int. I think this is also going to be a more reconnaissance based class, where FLD ENG, because of the ENG, I believe it's going to be a hacker, more in the way of engineering. So you're going to be manipulating panels like we see in this concept art right here. And then you have Spec Op, which is going to be the bulkier guy you see in this picture, which is going to be more your just baseline tank or frontline fighter preset. Now they say next, it's really hard to monetize an extraction shooter, which I agree with. We've seen problems with Tarkov where there's not any kind of microtransactions, but there are very expensive additions to the game that do give you extra bonuses like a bigger secure container and extra stash space. Now with Hunt, they have micro DLCs and an in-game currency for purchasing skins. Then they mention Arena Breakout, which right now is just a mobile extraction shooter, but with Arena Breakout Infinite is coming to PC, and it has been having some controversy with having pay to win, where if you die, you can just purchase better gear with real money. They say here that cosmetics are the only way a free-to-play game can make money fairly, and I agree. Now they do say, how do people expect customizable characters in an extraction shooter where your appearance is defined by the loot you wear? So making a pre-made base character that could be visually customized is an okay decision. This is a little bit of a strange claim because we don't have any evidence that the appearance on your runner is going to be affected by the loot or equipment that you carry. But it has been theorized because of the different pouches and equipment we see on the runners in some of the concept art and the trailer. Next they say it's business not charity, and they've heard that they're targeting only for solo and trio experiences, which ties with this. In my opinion, I don't really see how what I'm assuming is leaving out duos ties into just making more money with solo and trio, because we do know that when you split up the player base, queue times are longer. However, since this is AAA and it's Bungie, I get the feeling the player base is going to be pretty healthy. What I would really like to know is if they're going to split up solo and trio experiences to where solos queue with only other solos, or if it's like Hunt and solos are shoved into duos regardless, just with a little bit extra bonus XP and money. And then they can also choose to play with trios as well for even more rewards. Next, they say you can choose your affiliation with different corps like UESC, Traxxas, or MITA. Now, when it says choose your affiliation, this is vague. We don't really know what this means because technically in Tarkov, you could, I guess, affiliate with a trader. You could only trade with Peacekeeper and only use NATO weapons, but that's not exactly what I think this is implying. I think it's more implying that you will side with one of the factions, or maybe you could stay more neutral. This will be an interesting idea if this is the case, because in my experience, this is the first extraction shooter that would really do a faction allegiance system. So I'm really interested if this is true to see how that goes. Next, they state there's customizable weapons, barrels, scopes, mags, stocks, and a market to buy and sell stuff. I think a market existing is clear, though I don't know if they mean like just a shop where you trade with traders or something more like a black market. I'm leaning more towards the black market, but we'll just have to see. They do also say that there's seasonal progression similar to Destiny 2's artifact system and power level called bio points. Next, they claim it's taking more of a direction towards Hunt rather than Tarkov. Now, I hope this is the case because I do like Hunt Showdown better. I think it's a bit more casual and easier to get into. What they say they mean by this is there's a focus not on having a bunch of different items you can get like Tarkov, but instead it's just smaller, more centralized and specific loot and then missions that you do for your money. Next, they say there's normal big maps, but then they're testing a small map that's controlled by glitched AI that randomizes some assets and makes its layout change every time, or at least change a little bit to where it might feel different for every run. I really like this idea. I hope this is the case because I think this will really tie well into the rampancy arc that we're probably going to see a lot of the AIs go through, and having one of the AIs manipulating a map and changing it would be really interesting to see, maybe using the teleportation technology we've seen in Marathon to kind of move the map around, move objects and buildings. So we'll have to see how that works. That seems very interesting to me. Next, they state there's no way Marathon is being canceled. I completely agree. Marathon is not being canceled. It is going to come out. It would be suicide for the studio to not release the game at this point. Next, they state this is the main project of Bungie. We know this for a fact because of the statement from Pete Parson. We know that Marathon is going to be at the forefront of Bungie, and Destiny is now going to move more towards a side project. Next, they say the gameplay reveal is right around the corner. There was a leak earlier this year saying that the gameplay reveal was going to be in September. I would be excited to see if that's the case because that would help line up with an early or mid 2025 release. And finally, they say it's a game with good self-esteem. It's not cloning or making a direct copy of any games. I believe this. It seems that the studio is at least fairly confident with Marathon. They're going to take things, of course, from successful ones like Hunt, but Bungie is very good at having their own unique games, stories, lore. I think that's why people are so enthralled with Bungie. Now, what we probably will see is them borrowing things from past Bungie games. What Bungie does like doing is Bungie does like to borrow things from the past games, so I think we are going to see a lot of concepts pushed over from Destiny 2 bleed into Marathon. The last two posts are them just responding to comments, one saying that they believe that Marathon is going to fit into its own niche in the extraction shooter genre, which I hope will be the case. It really needs a good way to stand out for people to look into getting the game and trying it. Next, they say that it's a total misunderstanding of what the game is and that the IGN article really did ruin the game's reputation. I agree, it definitely did. A lot of people became uninterested in the game, but hopefully once we see gameplay, people will be more interested in the game, and maybe, even if this Twitter thread isn't true, people might see this and gain a little bit more faith in Bungie. Now, what do I think about this overall? I really like what's being said. I think I agree with everything that's said in this post, that I want this to be true. It would be really nice if everything said in these leaks were true, and it almost seems too good to be true. Now, I can't say much, of course, but this is a leak channel with only 7,300 or so followers, so it's not really a big leaker, so we can't automatically trust them, and I don't think you should automatically trust any leaker, even if they're reputable on the internet. Everything that is said needs to be taken with a grain of salt. So I would also encourage you to not let this really change your expectations. You shouldn't look at this thread and read this and say, this is really cool, I now expect this to come out of Bungie and Marathon. You should maybe look at it and say, hey, that's a cool concept or idea. But don't get your hopes up that these features are going to be in Marathon, because there's a very good chance they will not. So while it's nice to get something to start everyone talking about Marathon again, I don't think this is that reputable and really shouldn't be taken as fact. But what I do hope that it can really ignite another conversation about Marathon and maybe turn some of that disdain towards Marathon around, maybe into a little bit more hype, so when they're ready to reveal gameplay, they get lots of attention and hopefully hype builds back up for the game. But for right now, that's all we know, and unless something else wild happens, I don't think we'll know any more until the gameplay reveal. Now, once the gameplay does come out, I will be covering it immediately as soon as possible. In the meantime, I do have some other videos that are going to be coming out talking about some topics from the Marathon Vidoc and reveal trailer. If you do want to see those videos and get notified immediately when they come out, you can subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to. And if you did enjoy the video, if you want to leave a like, I would appreciate that greatly. It really does help me out. Lastly, if you do have any questions or criticism for me, feel free to leave it below in the comments. I would appreciate any kind of criticism to how I can make these videos better for y'all to watch. But until then, y'all stay positive and y'all have a great day.